explain to everyone that this year I wanted to try and do an anti-bullying campaign. Since I've been running the martial arts class, I've always wanted to use martial arts to help, not to say to people to fight back with bullies, but to stand up for themselves and to feel confident in school and not to even worry about bullies. We ran a poster advert at the start of the year saying that we were offering free sessions for any school or community group for children who were being affected by bullying. And I used children there because children usually have a harder time with bullies, but anyone of any age is being bullied. I think martial arts can help. I've asked Erin today to join me. I was supposed to do it live, but unfortunately times didn't work out and she's gone back to university to join me for a little chat. Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Erin now and ask you why or how did you start Tang Soo Do at the club?
So I started Tang Soo Do just before I turned 11, and I'm 18 now, so I've been doing it for quite a while. And I think it was kind of a social thing for me, weirdly, because I don't think that's the first thing you think of, but especially in our club, it's such a big part of it. And being so young, and when I started, there weren't a lot of women who did Tang Soo Do or children even. So, and now, of course, we have the ladies class and the children's class. So to see it grow so much is amazing. But I really started for a confidence thing. And I think that definitely helped a lot with confidence growing up.
Excellent. And obviously you enjoyed it and you kept it up because a lot of children your age, there's two big changes and you've been through them both. I see a lot of children who start when they're in primary school and then they stop being comprehensive because other things come up. And the other thing that stops you is what you're doing now. You're away in university, you're still keeping up your training and when you're back, you're training with us. So what did you notice after training? Like how were things outside? Now you school, 'cause that's what we're talking about, but how was school different for you once you started training?
So I remember when I was in, I think it was year 10, I was doing my mock exams and I took some time out from training just to, focus and try and get good marks and everything. And I did fine. But then when it came to my actual GCSEs, I kept my training up. And I'm so glad that I did because I think it really helped to regulate sort of my thought process, if that makes sense. And I remember feeling like it was just such a good break from that academic thing all the time. So I actually did a lot better in my GCSEs than I did in my mock exams. And I know that's because I had that, like I say, the social aspect, but also it is just so good for you to sort of not just be exercising your brain all the time, but to actually be doing physical things as well. And I know that that's the reason that I did a lot better.
Obviously, you say you've been doing it a long time and people might not know you, but you were someone who came in, who I would use the word, not a naturally gifted student, i.e., just like any other student, there was nothing like, oh my God, Erin's going to be like the moment you walked in, it wasn't that you were going to be the number one student. That over your time, you've obviously competed in tournaments. You've been part of our show in the martial arts demos, but you also got the most improved award 4 times, which is very impressive. Not many people have done that. You were someone who also probably my youngest student to get their black belt. Just talk very briefly. I don't want you to show off or brag or anything, but just talk about like how those achievements help your confidence. When you won your first medal at a tournament or when you got the most improved award, how did that make you feel?
So great. I mean, I think it's the most rewarding thing I've ever experienced. It's so great because once you start doing something like that and you get a medal or you get a certificate or something, you realize that you are good at something and that it's something you are able to do. And I think that's a big mental block for a lot of people is just, and I know, well, everybody experiences it, but there are times where you think, oh, I just, I'm not in the mood or I feel like I can't get past this point. But once you get a bit of motivation like that, it just makes you want to work harder. And the more you enjoy it, the harder you work, and then the better you do. So it's a positive cycle, I think.
One of the things was when we planned the martial arts show the first time, you were the only girl coming up and the only child coming up with us as well. Because we haven't spoken about this yet, but your dad joined 6 months after you because he saw how much it was helping you, which is lovely to see the two of you train. But one of the things we did was the first time all of us were going to attack you, and then the second time your dad was attacking you, and you got a lot of comments after from other martial artists, other black belts, saying how inspired they were with how well you defended yourself and basically how good you looked doing your technique. How did that feel for you?
Amazing. It was so lovely. It was quite touching actually to have, because it was mostly young women coming up and saying that, you just don't see it as much as you should do. And I think if you're a female who's doing martial arts, I think you really have to just put yourself out there and not be intimidated, and not just think that you're any less good just because you're a woman or a girl. So, and that I think was definitely validating, having those people come up and say that, because I think it is hard to not sort of get bogged down by that, but everybody's in it for the same reasons, and it's a community and you have to work together, and it's, yeah.
It was so nice for me to take you to an event like that and expose you to that sort of thing, like going on an adventure, because you didn't know what it was like. And one of the nice things was the first year you were pretty much not on your own because you were with us, but you were the only child coming up. And then the next year we went up with Grace and Adele and Annabelle, and there was more
Yeah.
of you than before. And it was nice that a gang of you came up and to have that experience. Quickly talk about how your dad started with you, because again, one of the things that I've always prided the club at is like we try and encourage families to train together, and that could be good. What's it done for like you and your dad's relationship outside?
It's great. So I remember when I was younger, I would always say to my dad after every class, I'd be like, "You have to come with me. It's so great." And he'd be like, "Oh, next week." And he'd keep saying it. And eventually I just pushed so much that he did. And now he's going to be going for his black belt soon. So, I'm glad that I kept pushing. And I think he's glad as well, because he really loves it. But it's great. I mean, it's such a I think it's a great way to bond, and you don't even really realize it. It's been fantastic. I mean, growing up and just sparring with him has been so funny, and just, yeah, he really enjoys it, and I do too. So it's a great way of spending good time together. And I think, if you're honestly speaking, if he hadn't started, I'm not confident that I would still be training, because you have to have that person or group of people pushing you on. So I think family is such a big part of it, because I really do think that's the reason that I'm still training.
Anyway, I'm not going to keep you the whole time. One of the nice cherries on top, which is why I decided to do this interview with you, is that I used your image because you're someone who started at a young age, at an age that's going to comprehensive school, which is where most parents are worried about their child being bullied, a bigger environment, and, it's more competitive and things like that. And then you kept it up all the way through school and, sixth form. And now, you're not training with me, but you plan to do martial arts up in university. And then I happened to run into your mother, and she thanked myself and Julie and said, "Look, I'm so glad that all the support you've given Erin, because now I don't worry about her when she's off out in the world." And for me, that's more important than any medal, any black belt, is that you feel safe and secure all the time. You're not worried about bad things happening to you, physically like that, and you know how to stand up to yourself. But also parents and family members aren't worried about their children.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, because I've been at uni for a couple of months, and I was just talking about how it's so nice to be able to, I've been to town a lot on my own, and when it's a city, it can be a bit intimidating, but I've never felt unsafe, and I've never felt in a vulnerable position. And it's just so important to have that security, to think, if for some reason you were put in that position, you would know what to do, and you would be able to rely on yourself to be safe. And I think it's just a fundamental thing. I think everybody should have that. I think, especially if you're a woman, it's really important. It's definitely helped a lot with feeling safe and just confidence. I think doing things on my own and knowing that I can handle it.
So if you could give someone who was roughly your age, you said 10 or 11 when you started, if you could give that person some advice who may be being bullied, or just feeling like they're not part of, like you said, a big part is like feeling social, they might feel a bit shy about things like that. What advice would you give them about possibly, like starting a martial art or things like that?
I would say it's a really hard time in life to sort of grow up. It's really strange, and I think you don't really experience anything else like it. But for me, doing martial arts just kind of became a constant. I didn't really think of it as like a hobby or a chore or anything. It just kind of became a routine. And I think having that routine to fall back on, it just makes you feel so good about yourself. And realistically, growing up and going to comp, sometimes it's great, but a lot of the time it doesn't make you feel the best, but I knew that martial arts always made me feel at my best. So it was definitely a safety net. And I think you need to have that safety net. For a lot of people, that is martial arts, even if they don't really realize it, but it's just so good for you. It's definitely one to try.
Erin, thank you so much for joining us. I'll just say the message one more time. If you're a school or a club or a concerned parent, please get in touch because I want to offer a free first session. If you come to train at the gym, the first session is free and we have lots of programs for lots of ages. Thank you very much.